Welcome back. The third chunk of video of the fourth module is going to explain to you on the observation and imitation approach. In other words, it's called as a social learning approach as proposed by Bandura that helps in learning strategies. At the end of this module, you will be able to explain the principles and process of observational learning approach and how does it differ from behaviorism, recognize the implications of observational learning approach, and formulate suggestive activities to foster learning through observation and imitation. Social learning approach. The two theories that we have already seen, namely classical conditioning and operant conditioning, concluded that every learning happens as a result of direct experience with the environment, and the learning was only by means of association. But a psychologist named Albert Bandura, though accepted the assumption of behaviorism, he came out with the idea that all types of learning do not happen only by means of association or direct experience with the environment. For example, imagine a child who is given a cricket bat for the first time. The child looking at the cricket bat would probably search for a ball and hit it. Is this action due to a direct experience of the child with the bat? Certainly no. It is because the child had seen others perform this action either on television or in person. Hence, learning occurs just by observing the action of others, which served as a base for Bandura in proposing observational learning, or in other words, social learning theory. The belief of Bandura is that children are like sponges. They soak up everyday experiences. And he assumed that learning occurs through observation, imitation, and modeling. The major elements are behavioral elements and cognitive elements as given by Bandura. Behavioral elements are nothing that comprise conditioning through association, reinforcement, and punishment. Cognitive elements gain significance in Bandura's theory because it involves attention, retention, reproduction, and motivation. Now let us look into the principles of social learning theory. Bandura explained in his book Social Learning Theory that most human behavior is observationally learned from others by observing and forming ideas of a particular behavior, and this information gets coded and gets guided for the future actions. His social learning theory has got three core principles. The first principle is people learn through observation. Bebodol experiment of Bandura is the best known example of children learning through observation. Children observing adults acting aggressively towards a Bebodol was found to imitate the violent action of the adult when allowed to play with the same doll later. However, Bandura identified three models through which a child learns. One is the live model, verbal instructional model, and the third one is a symbolic model. A live model is where a child absorbs an individual demonstrating a behavior. A verbal instruction model is where a child listens to the descriptions and explanations of a behavior. A symbolic model is where a child watches character, either real or fictional, displaying certain behavior through books, films, TV, or any media. The second principle is that mental states are crucial to learn. A behavior observed is not always learnt, as you know. For learning an observed behavior, the child's mental state and motivation are found to be imperative. Bandura differs from behaviorists in saying that reinforcement might not be only external. He coined a term called intrinsic reinforcement. Some of the intrinsic reinforcers are pride, satisfaction, accomplishment, etc. The third principle is that learning does not necessarily lead to a change in behavior. Behaviorists believe that learning leads to a permanent change, as we have seen in the definition. But observational learning contradicts behaviorism by saying that people can learn new information without demonstrating the new behavior. For example, a child watches another child steal a pencil might not demonstrate the same behavior. Now let us look into the process of observational learning. Social learning is said to be successful when the absorbed behavior is well learned or demonstrated. For example, teaching a child to swim is successful only when the child learns the skill and demonstrates it without assistance. For the process to be successful, certain 4 cognitive factors play a very important role in learning. The first one is attention, retention, reproduction, and then the motivation. Attention. For any observational learning, attention is important from the learner's side. At the same time, the model should be interesting to provoke the attention of the learner. Example, paying attention to the trainer. Retention is said to be the storage house of learning. In other words, retention means remembering the learned information and pulling it out later when needed. For example, retaining the nuances of swimming. The third is reproduction. Just attention and retention without practice or reproducing the information goes waste in the process of learning. Hence, the practice of the learned behavior gives significant results. Example, intensive swimming practice. The last is motivation. After learning the behavior to the fullest, there will be no use if the demonstration of the behavior is not motivated. Example, getting rewarded for swimming. Hence, the 4 principles of each of the 4 cognitive elements of Bandura are attention and focus, that really matters. Retention depends on the context. Reproduction occurs on demand. Motivation can be intrinsic or extrinsic. Now, what are the applications of social learning approach towards early childhood care settings? Social learning, otherwise called as observational learning, is said to be the tool for education. First is the positive consequence such as appreciation for a particular type of behavior. For example, doing homework regularly helps a child to repeat the behavior. Second, by means of negative consequence such as scolding by the teacher or getting scolded by the teacher of a particular type of behavior for the reason of thrashing another child out of anger, the child is likely to perform that behavior. If the model is novel and unique, then observational learning takes place, because the attention gets widened and the retention can be long-lasting. Hence, the facilitator of any early childhood care setting should be novel in presenting the ideas. The fourth way is that, though not often used with children in early years, social learning was found to be effective in building confidence among children by providing constructive feedback. Hope this video has explained to you how a children learns through observation, imitation, and modeling. Let me conclude the whole of the 4th module on behaviorism and social learning. Kids are wonderfully equipped to learn by themselves immediately after birth. Through classical conditioning, they learn by associating the stimulus, a neutral stimulus, with an environmental stimulus. Remember, these associations has got survival value too. And by means of operant conditioning, they learn to control the environmental events. And the third way is by learning by observing and imitating. Here, the behavior of another person is also another form of learning, as stated by Bandura. With the insights of the behaviorism and social approach towards learning, hope this module would have provided you with the strategies of application in their early years. As a facilitator, you should be able to understand and identify the right approach through which you can make a child learn. Thank you.